Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and what the F is happening with Marvel firing Beau DeMayo, head writer of X-Men 97? This is a news story that we have been quietly watching for months now, hearing all kinds of rumors, but in the past 24 hours, Marvel was forced to finally break its silence on the reasons they say were behind this move, and Beau DeMayo has responded. And this video explaining all of it is a bit outside of the film analysis purview of New Rockstars, but there is so much noise out there that it's very difficult to parse together the timeline, which sources to trust, which statements are in response to what other statements, and how this affected the X-Men 97 series that we saw and what we may see in season 2. And the New Rockstars team felt that we found ourselves in a unique position to properly break down the timeline and to try to help viewers contextualize this story. This is a news format that we are going to try every now and then that we, for now, are calling What the F is Happening? Okay, so X-Men 97 was in development with Marvel Studios ever since 2019. Marvel Animation wanted to revive the animated X-Men series that ran from 1992 to 1997 on Fox Kids. And then, after they made that decision, in November 2020, Beau DeMayo was brought in by Marvel to pitch on this series. This was after he had worked with the writing staff for Moon Knight. DeMayo had also written 2 episodes for The Witcher on Netflix, one in season 1 and another in season 2, we'll get to that later, and wrote the screenplay for the animated spin-off, The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf. He had also written 2 episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds season 1. DeMayo was also one of the screenwriters that Marvel Studios brought in to do a draft of their long in development Blade film. In November 2021, DeMayo was announced as the showrunner for this project, X-Men 97, and later Marvel unveiled character art at San Diego Comic-Con in July 2022. Work had already begun at that point on a 2nd season, and DeMayo's fame had increased as a fast advancing screenwriter, speaker at panels, and he was known for having a very active social media front, posting all kinds of content, including some fitness-related posts. Out magazine called Beau DeMayo in 2022, quote, the sexy gay Marvel writer and showrunner to know, and DeMayo also ran a non-explicit OnlyFans account under the username BeauOnlyFans. And trust me, all this is relevant to this story. So February 15th, 2024, Marvel Studios released a trailer for X-Men 97 and announced its release date of March 20th, 2024. Beau DeMayo leads the charge to promote the series on social media. And then March 12th, 2024, The Hollywood Reporter reports that Beau DeMayo was fired by Marvel and Disney earlier that week. And we're talking less than 2 weeks before the series would be releasing. Reasons for the firing at the time were not given, but speculation began, including Beau DeMayo's social media posts, his OnlyFans account, and all kinds of unconfirmed gossip that he was difficult to work with. But March 20th, 2024, X-Men 97 premiered and fans loved it. New Rockstars did all kinds of coverage on how great this show was. Yet months went by with no information from Marvel or from Beau DeMayo. So we at New Rockstars decided to reference the fact that he was fired from the show, but we had no further update beyond that. Throughout all this, Beau DeMayo continued tweeting about the show, giving behind the scenes insights into the writing, into the production, but he never responded to questions as to why he was fired. Marvel continued celebrating the show's success, but interestingly omitted Beau DeMayo from behind-the-scenes featurettes on the show and their making of Assembled documentary, which focused more on Brad Winderbaum and supervising producer Jay Castorena. For what it's worth, when I interviewed Jay Castorena before the season came out in early March, Castorena praised Beau DeMayo's work on the series and didn't seem too hesitant to credit him. Also, for what it's worth, a number of the more public voice actors who worked on the show positively interacted with DeMayo on Twitter, but we did not hear anything from the writers or from the animators who worked directly with Beau on the X-Men 97 production. So after the season wrapped, in July 17, 2024, X-Men 97 was nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program. Beau DeMayo is on the list of producers. August 9th through 11th of 2024, Beau DeMayo attends D23 and is seen walking the floor at Anaheim Convention Center. D23 is hosted by Disney and has a very tight guest list. If he was there representing X-Men 97, Disney would have had to have okayed it. And then August 12th, 2024, Beau DeMayo tweets that he was not invited to the Emmys by Marvel and Disney, saying, quote, to those asking, Marvel Disney has not reached out to arrange my attendance to the Emmys for the show I created, hashtag X-Men 97. And then August 15th, Beau DeMayo tweets that he was stripped of his season 2 writing credits because, he says, of a recent Instagram post showing fan art of himself as a shirtless Cyclops that he had posted during Pride Month. He said, quote, firstly, I'm so grateful to have worked on hashtag X-Men 97 collab collaborating with some amazingly talented folks. Creating this revival was a dream come true, and the support fans have shown is so touching. However, I felt it pressing for me to speak up in the wake of leaving the show. Above is #X-Men fan art I posted on Instagram for Gay Pride in June. On June 13th, Marvel sent a letter notifying me that they'd stripped my season 2 credits due to the post. Sadly, this is the latest in a troubling pattern I suffered while working on X-Men 97 and Blade. I'll have more to say soon, but I must take a step back from social media and find a safer space for me to be out, proud, and nerdy. Stay tuned. Shortly after this, on August 15th, Marvel released an official statement from a spokesperson reported by The Hollywood Reporter. The Hollywood Reporter wrote, Marvel responded by saying that DeMayo's behavior was the cause of his firing and for him losing his credits. Mr. DeMayo was terminated in March 2024 following an internal investigation, said a Marvel spokesperson in a statement. Quote, given the egregious nature of the findings, we severed ties with him immediately, and he has no further affiliation with Marvel. And then The Hollywood Reporter went on to say that sources say that following his exit, an agreement was reached between the two parties over the issue of tweeting about the show, something that DeMayo had continued to occasionally do. In light of the breaches, his credit for season 2 was removed. While no details of the cause of the termination or the internal reviews have surfaced, sources say it involved sexual misconduct. Now, shortly after this, DeMayo broke his 3-hour silence from social media to react to Variety's reporting, tweeting, quote, the truth will be revealed. After their Disney Plus disaster, Marvel wants to mislead with alleged contract breaches over tweets. It's tragic it's come to this, but unsurprising. Stay tuned. Now, interestingly, I have to note that DeMayo put his reaction tweet in quotes of his own, as if this statement was in the article that he was linking below, but it was not originally in that article. Variety later updated their article to add his reaction quote, but it looks like he just kind of put it in quotes to quote himself, and he willed it into existence by Variety, later adding it to the article retroactively. And then on Friday, August 16th, right before I started recording this video, DeMayo's attorney released a statement accusing Disney of gaslighting, implanting illegal, unconscionable items in contracts, hinting they have 100 incidents of Disney silencing the truth this way. And I assume from this accusation that this attorney must be new, because if such unconscionable items were in the contracts that Beau DeMayo signed, why would any attorney let him sign that contract to begin with? Anyway, this story is obviously still developing, and there's a lot of attempts out there to control the narrative. But here is what we can discern for now. 1. Beau DeMayo was not fired solely because of any suggestive posts or because he had an OnlyFans. That's not why he was fired initially. 2. Marvel Studios probably would not have invited such a controversy by firing DeMayo if it was just for minor reasons. They were that close to X-Men 97's release. They wanted it all to be smooth and positive about the show. They were clearly forced to act as a result of these claims coming to light. And had they not acted, it would have looked even worse for the studio when it came out if they had covered it up and allowed someone that they considered fireable at the time to rise in fame and power as a result of this amazing show. 3. In March 2024, Marvel and DeMayo agreed to some weird arrangement where DeMayo could continue to tweet about X-Men 97. And that, I think we can now say, is a little sus from Marvel to use DeMayo's social media following to help their show, even when they knew that he was a guy that they considered to be fireable. And then in June, DeMayo posted this Cyclops photo, and according to DeMayo, Marvel allegedly considered that an overreach of whatever this Twitter arrangement was, and then they decided then to strip DeMayo of his season 2 writing credits and uninvited him from the Emmys, according to DeMayo. Now, we don't know if Marvel could even do that, because stripping him of work he had already done to scripts, that's a whole separate issue that probably would have been arbitrated by the WGA. That would end up in Beau DeMayo getting writing credit no matter what he was accused of. Like, Bryan Singer was still the credited director of Bohemian Rhapsody, and he didn't even work most days on the set of that film. Also, Emmy invite lists are a confusing process that I actually have some experience in a past job I used to have. Like, who gets credited on Emmys for things and who actually gets to attend the ceremony is a big, messy process. And we have to remind ourselves that Disney did invite Beau DeMayo to D23 just last week. And finally, Beau DeMayo's recent tweets just in the past week criticizing Marvel and Disney is what really led to Marvel now releasing their statement that called its behavior egregious, leading to The Hollywood Reporter citing some source using the word sexual misconduct. So the real enemy of the public here is Twitter itself. It brings out the worst in everyone. Now, August 16th, Scooper Jeff Snyder of The Insider reports further details. Now, it's important to note that Snyder is an independent reporter. He's not affiliated with any major outlet. He does not have to worry about being cautious about what he says because there's not dozens of staffers whose jobs will be on the line if he's wrong, and therefore he's not always accurate, and he's actually known for a somewhat testy relationship with the studios and industry publicists over what he reports. But in the wild west of scoopers out there on the internet, I have to say he at least has one of the better track records, and here's what he reported. He said Beau DeMayo allegedly sent nude photos of himself in sexually suggestive hero poses to several young male staffers working on X-Men 97, saying they could be used as inspiration. According to Snyder, DeMayo was asked to stop sending such photos but continued to do so. Jeff Snyder also reports an incident that involved Beau DeMayo groping an assistant on multiple occasions, and that he was both emotionally and physically abusive to staffers. So from here, we have to step back and give some background context on DeMayo that originally I wasn't going to include, but I think we have to mention it. Back in October 2022, Beau DeMayo had gotten into an online beef with a writer named Matthew D'Ambrosio, who wrote along with DeMayo on season 2 of The Witcher on Netflix. DeMayo in fall 2022 was joining the general online dogpiling on the quality of The Witcher series on Twitter, suggesting it had dropped off after he left it, which is pretty unprofessional for writers to do. So D'Ambrosio brought back up a controversy DeMayo was involved with when they were both working on season 2. In season 2 of The Witcher, DeMayo wrote an episode where a gay character, Eskel, was killed off from an infection, which was pretty controversial for a number of reasons. And you can actually see various statements that DeMayo and D'Ambrosio had made about this plot decision and things that D'Ambrosio claimed DeMayo had said in this article from Fandom Wire. Fandom Wire is another outlet that does not have the same authority and credibility of The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Entertainment Weekly, and other major trades, because arguably a he said beef between TV writers at that time probably fell beneath the threshold of news, and Fandom Wire only published that article in April 2024 looking back on it. But one thing that D'Ambrosio tweeted at the time that we believe is now newsworthy and relevant to the current discussion was this. This writer said, quote, "If I were unceremoniously fired from a job for being both emotionally and physically abusive, I'd probably focus on getting help instead of constantly bringing up my involvement with said job." And he said this on October 23rd, 2022. This was over a year and a half before anything about Beau DeMayo came up for X-Men 97. So therefore, we are seeing a possible pattern where Beau DeMayo engaged in some kind of behavior on 2 different shows for 2 different studios. This isn't just about Disney. This is about Beau. And the second of those productions, with Marvel, investigated and found his behavior egregious and quickly fired him. But they did so quietly without publicizing a reason, and DeMayo refused to stop tweeting about it. So when it comes to Marvel, we're looking at 2 breaches here. The first breach was whatever behavior DeMayo did to get fired in March 2024. We read Jeff Snyder's claims, and I can confirm that we have heard similar rumors in the past, but it was from a source who did not want to go on the record or even speak on background. So New Rockstars at that time decided to wait for Marvel Studios to respond, which is why we're only making this video now. The second breach with DeMayo was after Marvel's post-firing Twitter understanding with DeMayo that DeMayo could continue to tweet about the show, but then over the summer, something DeMayo tweeted led to Marvel cutting off his future credits to the show, but that's according to DeMayo. It may have just been Marvel saying like, did you have to include one that made you a hunky jacked Cyclops? We don't know. This second one could just be DeMayo trying to suggest that Marvel fired him for something as harmless as posting fan art and suggestive fitness videos, but that is not the case. He was fired for other behavior while he was working in his capacity as showrunner for X-Men 97. If Jeff Snyder's claims about DeMayo sending staffers photos of himself in suggestive hero poses, if those claims are true, it does put into a new context some of what we picked up on at New Rockstars in our episode analyses of the character design and animation on the show. Like a number of shots definitely framed in the shot and focused on characters' anatomies in certain ways that I would often call out with a shout out to the creators saying like, we see what you're doing. At the time, these seemed like commentaries on the ways that the 90s run and various animated titles over the decades intentionally or unintentionally sexualize the characters, and the way audiences intentionally or unintentionally sexualize them from the viewer's perspective. And these instances in X-Men 97, I have to say, were just not a big deal. It's not what the show was all about, and I think it was probably more a result of me looking too much into things. But there's also a history in this industry of animation actually being targeted at adults, from Betty Boop to Heavy Metal to Jessica Rabbit. And I and various people in my life have worked long enough in this industry, specifically in animation production, to know that story artists and animators and producers occasionally will use themselves and recordings of their appearances and gestures as reference points for animators, but that is not what this is. And we cannot let that history confuse what really does look like a separate instance in which misconduct is being alleged. The quality and the success of X-Men 97 is not solely the work of one creator. Clearly, Beau DeMayo is a talented writer and a talented storyteller with a lot to say. And it's a shame that Twitter is bringing out the worst of him. It's something that Twitter does to all of us. X-Men 97 is clearly a quality show, a successful show, but it was not the work of one creator. It was a collaboration among several artists. The title itself is a continuation from a 90s series created by Julia and Eric Lewald. So I beg all of you, as the story is continuing to develop, pause before you post or repost the claims of any one source, before all parties have had the chance to respond, before considering the context and the timeline that these statements are being made, before you consider how your posting could be serving the agenda of someone you don't really know, despite how effective that person may be at making themselves look like a victim on social media. And I also want to say that anything New Rockstars did to focus on the sexualization of some characters in our analysis of X-Men 97, or just playfully joke about the gossip around Beau DeMayo, if that ended up hurting anyone who worked on X-Men 97, I sincerely apologize. And I hope anyone out there can respect that our patience to report on this story came out of an abundance of caution to not hurt anyone further, and in the meantime to just celebrate the great artistry that were achieved by the hundreds of people involved with this series. And that is what the is happening with Beau DeMayo, and will likely continue to happen in the days ahead. Thank you everyone for your patience with this video. Please take care of each other out there. Follow all 3 of the channels in the New Rockstars network. You can follow me at EA Voss, and we'll see you next time. Bye.